Okay, Rashard, the live stream is launching now.
All right, thank you. Hey, Yusuf, are you able to hear us?
Okay, all right. Okay, bye.
No, you're not sharing the screen now, are you?
Yeah, but
Hello there, Dr. Driscoll.
Hello, hi there.
How are you?
Okay,
It looks like we can hear you. Can you hear me clearly?
I hear you very loud and clear. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. We should be getting another minute or so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Baker, can you hear
Can
us?
you hear me?
Marsha, I hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
Hey, Marsha, you're a co-host.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes.
This meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Booth, and on behalf of the South Fulton Coalition, we'd like to welcome you to this town hall forum. This forum is for State Representative Congressional District 13. Quickly about the South Fulton Coalition. The mission of the South Fulton Coalition is to implement action programs such as this town hall for the continued improvement, accountability, and integrity of the city of South Fulton and its elected officials. For this town hall interview, we have the following ground rules that we'd like for you to abide by. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for their opening remarks. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name. And each candidate will also have 2 minutes to respond to questions. We have a timekeeper that'll give you a 30-second warning on your opening remarks and a 15-second warning on your responses to questions. Questions will be directed from the residents. And if you would like to ask a question, if you're a participant in this town hall, please use the reaction features to raise your electronic hand. And once you do that, we will go ahead and ask you to ask your question. If you want to show up on video, please do. If you don't want to, if you're not asking a question, then please cut your video off and please stay on mute. Please be respectful to the moderator and to the candidates, and inappropriate questions and any disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated. This is your only warning, and if necessary, we will exit you out of the room. My colleagues, Richard Snellings, Rod Brown, and Ms. Marcia Still will assist with facilitation of this town hall. So Richard, with that, anything else you have to add?
Thank you. We just asked that the residents please limit your questions to 45 seconds. For the candidates, we ask that you limit your responses to 2 minutes. And video is reserved for our candidates. But if there's a resident that would like to go on video while they ask the question, please feel free to do so. But turn your video off when you are done answering your question. I would like to turn it back over to the moderator, Ron Booth. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And we'll go ahead and add to that a quick roll call. So if you would just announce that you're here once I call your name. Mr. Cesar Gonzalez.
I'm here.
Ms. Dominica Hawkins.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mark Baker.
Present.
Dr. Chastity Driscoll.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Vincent Ford. Okay, and David Scott. Okay, we don't have either of those two showing up. So the order I just went, that'll be the order of your opening remarks. So Mr. Gonzalez, we'll start with you. Your 5 minutes starts right now.
Okay, I'm Cesar Gonzalez, candidate for 13th Congressional District. I grew up in Metro New York as a ward of the state, living in a boys' home, went from the streets to professional motorcycle racing and working in aerospace for companies such as SpaceX and Blue Origin. I've lived in the 13th Congressional District for 25 years and owned and operated businesses here. For my platform, according to the 2020 census reports, only 2.8% of all workers in the 13th district are skilled workers. For that, I support vocational training of high school students and displaced workers, which in turn will build up the local economy and wages, encourages high-paying manufacturers to relocate here in the 13th, and overall raises the quality of life here. Training young people in marketable skills gives them a sense of direction and self-worth, steering them away from the streets. I support school choice and a voucher system that allows the funding to follow the student. I believe the parents should have a say in what their children learn. I believe in curbing illegal immigration. Okay, my experiences in California and Texas show me that an unchecked flow of illegal immigrants taps local resources that would otherwise be used by local citizens. We have, 85 million federal dollars to relocate immigrants here locally while the local communities languish. I think that's wrong. I think that funding should be for Americans first, for our communities first, and then we consider anybody else. Of course, I support fiscal accountability and oversight of federal resources. You have politicians campaigning on the suffrage of inner city communities and touting their
30
record.
seconds remaining.
Okay. Resources that are supposed to go to address issues in the district should be directed to those concerned. We need a representative that is responsive to the needs and concerns of the constituents of the 13th district. I am the candidate best suited for the task here. With my coalition of building abilities and problem-solving skills, we will make the 13th district a leader in growth and prosperity in Metro Atlanta. For more information, see my website, CesarGonzalezForCongress.us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Miss Dominica Hawkins, you're next. Turn your video on if you want it on, please. Miss Hawkins.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me know when the time starts. Ready to go?
Right now, right now.
All right. My name is Dominica Hawkins. I'm a current congressional candidate for District 13. A little bit about my background. I was a mortgage broker in 2008 during the economic collapse. So I'm no stranger on how to pull individuals out of an economic collapse based on policy. I actually dealt a lot with individuals that were in the process of potentially losing their homes because they were getting foreclosed on. I established private funding to actually help them stave off being foreclosed on to save their actual properties. I too believe in school choice. I have a disabled daughter that is 7 years old. I'm the mother of 2 children, and I'm the wife of a disabled veteran. So we believe in veteran services being extended because there's no reason why we should go out of the country to help other countries and not actually help our own veterans. I believe that we should be done first and foremost. I believe that within the district, we have a lot of potential that we can actually act on in regards to film and TV production, in regards to trade schools, in regards to actually enabling the district to bring the money back into the district to increase that economic impact. In fact, I noticed that one of the individuals who's not present for this particular meeting, and he hasn't seemed to show up, doesn't show up for work for a few years, quite a few. So at this point, with its best served, education and labor. We need to bring the education and labor and actually bring that back to the forefront of the district. We have a lot of individuals that in these school districts that are currently failing. And with the things that I bring, I do, since my daughter is disabled, I actually have the ability to bring a different skill set as a wife and mother to the district. We need to bring families back.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
All right, I do appreciate that. And we can't use this systemic racism as a crutch. We need to strengthen the people in the district, and that is what I believe I'll be able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent comments. Dr. Mark Baker, you're next. Your time will begin as soon as I see your face. Dr. Baker.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Baker. I think before I go too far into who I am, I think that it's vital, and I think for the edification of all listening, that you guys know that I am running as a Democrat, and everyone prior to the sound of my voice is running as a Republican candidate. And I believe there's only 2 of us that's running as Democrats on this entire Zoom meeting. I think it's vital that I put that out there during my 5 minutes of time. Myself and I believe Dr. Driscoll are the only 2 candidates running to represent District 13 on this Zoom as Democrats. With that being said, I am Dr. Mark Baker. I have a PhD in African American Studies, Humanities from Clark Atlanta University and the AUC, where I also received my master's degree in criminal justice. I went to Dillard University in New Orleans, HBCU, for my undergrad in sociology and a minor in music. About 21 years ago, I was a sergeant of Clark Atlanta's police department. And I was also community liaison and shift supervisor for the police department back then. I continued there while I started my doctoral program, and I ultimately went to Fulton County Schools as a school police officer, where I served in the city of South Fulton directly in several schools, from Palmetto Elementary, Bear Creek Middle, Renaissance Elementary, Renaissance Middle, Langston Hughes when it opened, the Creekside, all the way to Westlake, different schools, of course, as a school police officer, where I have served at various times and various moments, protecting our community and our young people. However, when I saw Michael Brown raise his hands up and get shot in Ferguson, I could no longer continue as putting on a uniform in front of students in Fulton County Schools. Luckily, I was at my mark where I was vested and I retired from law enforcement. And about a year and a half later, we created the city of South Fulton, where I'm proud to say that I've served since its inception as the District 7 councilman, reelected twice. And I am proud to say that as the District 7 councilman, I have passed some of the most progressive legislation in our region, from abolishing Columbus Day, decriminalizing cannabis,
30 seconds remaining,
making $15 a minimum wage, banning the box for convicted felons, activating the Development Authority, where I'm the chairman, activating the Urban Redevelopment Authority, where I'm bringing in, I brought in $17 million to the city. I'm the first in the state to end no-knock warrants under Breonna Taylor law. And you can learn more about me under Baker4Congress.com. Thank you. And I live in District 13, unlike the incumbent or Vincent Fort, who is also a candidate.
Thank you, Dr. Baker.
Thank you.
And audience, please go ahead and get your questions ready, because after the next speaker, we'll go ahead and start filling your questions. Dr. Driscoll, when you get a chance, as soon as I see your face, we'll go ahead and start your time. Dr. Driscoll.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to the organizers to give us a chance to be able to speak directly to the residents, which is very important. Thank you, Dr. Baker, for bringing this point up. I am the only female Democratic here on this candidate ballot for District 13. I think it's very important to state that, because I care about the district, because I'm raised in the district as a child. The only one on the ballot here for Democrats has done that. I'm committed and I'm compassionate about my residents here in District 13. And ultimately, I want to just be sure that District 13 is safe, economically strong, and growing forward to the future for our residents. From our district, I earned a doctorate in education from the University of Southern California in organizational leadership. I became an award-winning educator, military spouse, Marine specifically, and I'm a AmeriCorps alum, and also just a proud mother of an 11-year-old who I keep right here on my pen to be sure that I am focused for the people and to know exactly why I'm running in this race. I want to build for residents a thriving community that I know we all worked hard for, that I saw my parents work hard for when I was a child, being raised in District 13, my father being an EMT worker and also a firefighter, one of the first firefighters, Black firefighters in Morrow Fire Department, my mother being able to be a medical assistant there in District 13. I saw what it took to get us from the poverty, but also to the level of middle class building. Regardless of the lens I look through this, how does this affect the daily families, the lives of our district members? But not only that, how does it increase social, economic development for all of our residents? And from there, I take every other perspective through that lens. Look, I'm going to stand up for women and families. I'm also going to be a great advocate to improve public education, higher education, if that's counseling, school debt, and also being sure that women have the representation that we deserve. I think it's also great to point out that most of our district elected officials are males, and only 25% in 2021 are females. So we're still being able to climb that ladder, but I do know that more needs to be done. Look,
you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. I'm beyond the culture. I'm specifically for the community. And I want to be sure that all of us are thriving the way that we deserve to thrive. And what's wrong with asking to simply re-elect and check someone off the box, or actually earn your vote and stay visible and transparent where you can see me working for you? I hope that you go to voteinmay.com. That's voteinmay.com to get more information about this critical election that's coming up May 24th. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. Very good. I misspoke earlier. I said that was the last speaker, but we have Mr. Vincent Fort on. So, Mr. Fort, I don't know if you heard us at the beginning, but you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks. As soon as I see your face, we'll go ahead and start. Mr. Fort.
All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. There was a couple of misstatements made earlier. I am a Democrat. And so there's more than 2 Democrats. There are 3 Democrats on this call that are running in District 13. I am running on 3 or 4 issues that are very important to the community. One is healthcare. I want universal healthcare. I believe healthcare is a human right. In this district, District 13, it's even more critical because there are a great number of health disparities that particularly African Americans suffered through. We know through the COVID crisis, the zip codes in the 13th district were hardest hit by COVID. I was horrified earlier this week to find out that South Fulton Hospital is closing in its present form. That is a crisis. It's going to put a burden on other hospitals. I don't know how it happened, but the bottom line is this. I am someone who has fought for Medicaid expansion. When Grady Hospital was in trouble, I went to Governor Roy Barnes and got $53 million for Grady Hospital when it was going through its trouble. So I don't know who dropped the ball on the South Fulton Hospital, but it is a challenge that we must face in this district. 2, I have fought against predatory lenders. It is the signature issue of my lifetime. In particular, I am
30 seconds remaining.
Fought against payday lenders, and we'll talk more about that later. Voting rights, absolutely critical. All your other rights are what? Based on voting rights. So that's as much as I want to say right now, but I'm glad to be a Democrat in this race and present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fort. And just one correction on our part. We announced the candidates that were here at the beginning. So that's why that discrepancy came up about the Democrats versus Republicans. So not anyone's fault except for ours. So with that, everyone, if you'd like to ask a question, please don't forget to use the reaction features to raise your electronic hand. And I'll be asking my colleagues to help me field the questions. So anyone want to go first? A lot of candidates, a lot of smart people. Please ask your questions. Okay, I'll make it easy. And we'll go in order of candidates. Well, I stand corrected. Tony, take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, yes, my name is Tony. It was actually Antonia. I have a question for Ms. Dominica Hawkins. I noticed on your website that you put on there fatherhood's rights. After doing several research regarding your background and your husband's background, I really want to know your stance about father's right, because your record does not support what you intend on doing in the future to help fathers and to help children.
Feel free to go ahead and respond. We'll start your time as soon as you show up on camera.
Excellent. Well, one of the things that I'm very candid about is fathers' rights. I believe that fathers should be able to be in their children's lives without any interruption from any of outside sources. That is what I stand on for fatherhood's right. One of the biggest things with father's rights is what I would like to see happen would be an immediate 50-50 father's rights granted from parenthood, from conception. We would give the father 50-50 custody, and the only way that he wouldn't be granted 50-50 custody would be if he decided to forego those particular rights as a father.
But why is it that the man has the choice? What about the rights of the mother and how that should happen when the father, we all know where child support, women are fighting every day to take care of the children. And when the fathers refuse to be in the children's life or support them, you're telling me now that you want the father to have 50% rights at conception?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we won't be taking any follow-up questions unless you raise your hand again, so please don't do that again. Thank you, and thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Mayor Khalid, please take yourself off mute. You're the next person to ask a question. Thank you for being here. Mr. Mayor.
Hi, yes, here I am. I'm sorry, I'm meeting with some families who are trying to get in our programs going in our parks. But thank you so much to the South Fulton Coalition for doing this. My question is for everyone, including the person who is not here, which is the incumbent. I've been a councilman in the city of South Fulton for 5 years. And in all of that time, I have only met or spoken to David Scott once. I've hosted multiple political education events, including debates like this, which he has never attended. I've been mayor of the city for 100 days. And I've spoken to Senators Ossoff and with Senator Warnock's office, but not my congressman. If I, as mayor, cannot connect with my congressman, I fear his constituents' connection is even worse. And so my question to the candidates is, what will you do to stay in contact with your constituents, especially those everyday people that you or folks in your office may not have a personal relationship with?
Great question, and that question is for everyone. So again, we'll go in order, starting with Mr. Cesar Gonzalez. Your 2 minutes begin as soon as I see you. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I'm a person of the community, and I appreciate strong lines of communication. As a representative of the community, you cannot effectively represent the concerns and interests of the people if you have no contact with them. So I believe in open lines of communication, which I exploit to this very day. Okay, I don't believe in form letters or recorded messages as the incumbent does. So yes, my constituents will have a direct access to me. As you see on my business cards, which have my personal cell phone number, which I field calls with pleasure. Again, you cannot effectively represent the constituents of the district if you don't have a direct line of communication to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that response. Ms. Hawkins, you're next.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, what I believe is one of my mantras is people over politics. And that is a very firm stance of mine. I put the people, the constituents, over the actual politics and the politicians. I am a new person to politics, but I am not new to people. That is one of the things that individuals get when they get with me. They actually get an individual that is down to earth, that is actually listening to their concerns, that is actually listening and putting those concerns first and foremost, above super PACs, above DC. It is about our district, and that is what I am here to represent.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts on that question?
First off, thanks for that question, Mr. Mayor. And as you know, I was there with you when we started this city, and I myself have had limited conversations with the incumbent. And just to answer the question soundly, I go everywhere. I am everywhere. And I am a dedicated servant. I don't know how to live any other way. Since the inception of our city, since before our city, I've been a servant, and I'll be there and I'll be available. I give my constituents my personal cell phone number. And again, I'll be willing to do that in that capacity. And what I will say is this, I'm prepared because I do have connections with, first of all, I live in District 13. That's enough right there. Like, that's the biggest start. I believe that we shouldn't be able to take this job if we didn't live in District 13, because we would probably be more engaged if we knew, if we lived here and we knew the things that were, I guess, impacting the constituents and the residents in our district. We would be able to converse openly and more regularly with the city leaders. But I am prepared to have quarterly and commit to quarterly meetings with mayor and councils. And even if they aren't willing to meet quarterly, I will definitely provide legislative updates and make myself available when they are. Now, the great thing about what we're doing now on this platform is the fact that this is a Zoom, and we've learned and we understand and inwardly digest now how we could communicate without all coming together. I'll make sure that, especially through Zoom at minimum, if I can't be present, that I'll set that up with you, Mr. Mayor, and any other city leader or official that's willing to do the same. I yield.
Thank you. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts on that question?
Thank you, Mayor, for joining us, and congratulations on your first 100 days. Thank you so much for what you do in the community. Listen, it is straightforward to what the answer is. I want to be sure that I am extremely focused on constituent services, and I'm going to spend most of my time here visibly where you can see me. And that way I am not in all the DC bubble fundraisers are so focused on what's going on there and forgetting about what's going on here. Ms. Hawkins talked about how she's for the people over the party, but listen, for me, I'm going to tell you that I am of a priority over the party. And people are the priority. And when I am talking to many, now hundreds of voters on my daily calls, I hear this time and time again, Mayor, that people cannot see where their current incumbent congressman is not there. I'm writing to change that. There's a gap, and I want to create a direct to district pipeline to be sure that we have these. All the meetings that we have are going to be grounded toward getting out the vote, but not only that, being sure that people are really understanding the empathy that they need answers right now. You can't wait for me to pick up the phone in my office. I need to be there in your community, boots on the ground. And if anyone needs to contact me, it's 678-645-8245. You can also go on voteinmay.com because I'm going to be there to earn your vote, to be sure that you see me.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Fort, your comments on that question?
Well, based off of, excuse me, I apologize for interrupting, but
you weren't recognized. You weren't recognized. I was recognized.
I was mentioned, sir.
Yeah,
but you weren't recognized. Mr. Fort is
I'm
right.
sorry.
We'll get back to you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Stand by.
Okay.
Mr. Fort, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. You know, it's already been established that the incumbent is missing in action. I won't go over that anymore. But one of the things that I have a history of as an elected official, when I was in the state Senate for 21 years, I was all over my district in neighborhood association meetings, block clubs, and I'll continue that. You know, when I am in town from DC, I will be in the neighborhood association meeting, Democratic Party meeting, all those meetings, listening to people, talking to people. But there are other methods. Before there were Zoom calls, we used to do telephone town hall meetings. So telephone town hall meetings, virtual meetings like this, but in-person meetings are absolutely critical. The incumbent did one in-person meeting, I think, 10 years ago. And after he heard things he didn't want to hear, he stopped doing in-person town hall meetings. So it is absolutely critical that we, as elected officials, be in place. When I'm not in Washington, I'm going to be in the community. When I'm in Washington, when I'm able, we will do virtual specific, and I appreciate the person in the chat that wanted specifics. I will do virtual town hall meetings. I will do telephone town hall meetings and be in touch with the constituents as well as elected officials. So thank you for that question. It's a great question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for those comments. And Ms. Hawkins, you have 30 seconds for your rebuttal. Go ahead, you have 20 seconds. You have 20 seconds. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My telephone number, my cell number is 404-399-4501. I'm going to drop it in the chat along with my personal email. Thank you.
Great, almost 2 minutes exactly. Okay, Ms. Hawkins, you have 30 seconds for your rebuttal to that previous question. Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it, organizer. Well, what I would have to ask to Dr. Driscoll would be, being that what I see in the chat as well, and this is what we're focusing on, we're saying we're putting people over the politics and we're prioritizing. What I would like to know is what are your tangibles that you're going to use to empower the district?
Okay, Dr. Driscoll, 30 seconds to respond to that question.
Thank you for that question. Like you, I want to be sure that I am holding the virtual meetings that people talked about earlier. I also want to be sure that there is a dashboard that is transparent to where my constituents can log on at any time to see exactly where our district stands, to see exactly what community events are next, and to get the exact direct resources that they need to be able to be sure that they can make that answer beyond a click. I want to also be sure that I'm sending out monthly newsletters to also let them know not only what's going on in Washington, but how what's going on in Washington is also going to affect them as their boots on the ground every day. Look, this isn't about me.
15 seconds remaining.
Oh, thank you. This isn't about me, and this is not about our incumbent who is not here, right? If it was a priority, that person will be here. It is an injustice to be sure to know that this person doesn't have an incentive, or not only that, the intention to show up. And with those tangibles that I just showed you or just spoke to you about, it'll be accessible 24/7, no matter where my district members are.
Thank you for those remarks. Mr. Co-Moderator Rod Brown, please go ahead with your question from the chat, I believe.
Thank you. I was trying to start the video as well. Thank you very much. Yes, I have a couple of questions from the chat, and it's both of them are for all candidates. The first one is our chat participants would like your top 3 priorities, and they want you to be specific. And then they also would like to know what your accomplishments have been thus far. What have you done for the district? What have you done to support the idea that you could be the best person for the position that you seek? That's the first question. The second question was in reference to the 50% paternal rights. A person would like to know what the panel's position is on 50% paternal rights, and specifically if that would impact abortion, meaning that fathers would have say on whether or not a woman could abort a pregnancy. So if those 2 questions could be addressed by all candidates, we'd appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And candidates will go in order again. You'll still have 2 minutes, but please use 1 minute for each question, but manage your time well. We'll start again with you, Mr. Gonzalez. Your 2 minutes will start as soon as I hear you.
I'm here.
Mr. Gonzalez, there he is. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, my 3 priorities, to make this brief, is vocational training. And I spoke earlier about the significance of vocational training and how it will affect the 13th professional district. I believe in fiscal accountability and oversight of federal resources. I don't think the resources are reaching the street level, reaching the problem centers that aren't there. I'm sorry. That have the needs. I believe also in curbing illegal immigration. I don't want immigrants to be competing with Americans and vice versa for resources and stuff. In terms of parental rights and abortion, I think the community, I think the inner city communities are overrepresented in abortions. Therefore, I am against them. I think we should focus more on adoption and streamlining the adoption process. As far as paternal rights, I believe that both parents should have equal rights as well as equal responsibility for supporting the children. And these rights are covered under the 5th, 9th, 11th, and 14th Amendments, as I'm not mistaken.
30 seconds.
I yield at this point.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts on those questions? 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. I do appreciate both of those questions. Those actually directly correlate to a lot of my sound premises. One of my main concepts is I am a constitutional conservative. So I believe in all constitutional rights. That's 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, to be specific. First is first for a reason. We have that freedom of speech. Second, protects the first, which is one of the reasons I am a fan of constitutional carry. In regards to the 10th, I am definitely a fan of states' rights being protected. Absolutely. In regards to the second question, I would have to state that I am definitely pro-life. I believe that life begins at the moment of conception. I am also pro-father's rights because I believe that the rights of the child would not be able to be sustainable if the father was never there in the first place. Oh, I didn't even realize my video was off. Sorry, guys. So when it comes down to father's rights, I stand for two-parent homes, first and foremost. I believe that the children need their fathers present. And the reason a lot of the situations are happening is because the fathers are being forced out of the home from either the government or by the mother. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts? Dr. Baker.
Okay, have you guys. Okay, thanks for the question. Real quick and briefly. First off, I would say my 3 main objectives would be economic development, education and youth assistance programs and 501c3s, as well as police reform when you look at the approach to modernizing, not defunding, but modernizing and modifying our approach to law enforcement. When I go into detail on each of those things, I contend on education and youth reform. You can't teach a child you don't love. You can't teach a child you don't understand, and you can't teach a child that you are afraid of. And when you put the amalgamation of those 3 things together, you have 501c3s around District 13, the city of South Fulton especially. I was out with them this past weekend, all throughout the Pointer Ridge and Old National area. I'm a Father First, Gary Davis Next Level Boys Academy, as well as Mawali Davis's Black Man Lab. I think that it's important to touch those people who are closest to those people and give them the assistance that they need in order to amplify and enhance those services. Economic development. I have a $2 billion project coming to the center of District 13, right on Old National, as the chairman of Envision South Fulton, the city of South Fulton's development authority, that is going to bring 10,000 jobs, not job fairs, but 10,000 jobs to our district directly. And lastly, when it comes to the question about abortion and the women's rights, respectfully,
30
my mother would probably not want me to go too far in this conversation. She contends, as I contend, of the words of the late great Tupac, and I quote, "Since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one." I yield.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts.
Thank you for the question. Definitely want to be sure that we start off with thinking about, again, the perspective of how do these questions affect the daily lives of our residents in the district? And not only that, how does this increase the social or economic development of our residents? That's a perspective that I'm coming from. Number one, I definitely want to go ahead and resume the child tax credit. As a mother, I do know how a lot of those avenues and resources that we had at one point in time, when they stopped, I do know that that had a direct impact, not only to the household, but also to the children who depended on that support to continue to keep going forward. Also, as I said before, I'm standing up for women's rights today, and I'm standing up for women's rights tomorrow. I am an advocate to be sure that women have the choice. The reproductive issues, those are also medical issues. And despite what we have been told as far as for progress, us as women still have no equal representation when it comes to health, and also when it comes to the rights of our bodies, to respect that. Also, I want to be sure that we are helping to expand Medicaid for our healthcare systems. And I also said this earlier before, but being able to have a direct district pipeline to be able to help the youth to get skilled jobs in this new digital era that we're going in. There is a big divide that no one's speaking about, and also the divide in mental health resources. I want to be sure that those people who have the needs that they have as far as when it comes to mental stability, that they're able to get those directly from directly from a resource that's a wraparound service that doesn't cost extra funds from their pockets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Dr. Driscoll. Mr. Fort, your thoughts on those questions?
Thank you. I've already listed one of my priorities, and that is healthcare for all, Medicare for all, a single payer healthcare system, recognizing that healthcare is a human right. You know, and I think the best part of that question was, what have you done which shows that you can accomplish these things? I already told you that I got $53 million for Grady Hospital. Like I said, I'm just horrified that South Fulton Hospital is closed. I'm going to fight predatory lenders. You know, when the incumbent, as I said, was making common cause with them, I was fighting payday lenders. By the way, I passed the strongest anti-predatory lending law in the country when I was in the General Assembly. And then finally, the third priority is creating jobs and training for young people. That's why I got $45 million in the budget for buildings at Atlanta Technical College and Atlanta Metropolitan College. For example, the health science building at Atlanta Technical College, a new $11 million building, helped Atlanta Tech offer more programs, more opportunities to train young people.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
And then as far as the abortion question is concerned, a woman has a right to choose. It's not a man's decision. It is that woman's decision. I'm not going to get in between a woman and her right to choose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those responses. Caitlin, please take yourself off mute. Please let us know your last name, and please let us know who your comments are directed to, or your question rather. Caitlin, I see that you're still on mute, so please take yourself off mute. And if I don't hear from you in the next 5 seconds, well, no, that's not you. Caitlin, are you there? Once, twice. Okay, Ellen, same instructions, take yourself off mute. Please mention your last name and let us know who your question is directed to. Ellen, I can't I can't hear you. Rashard, can you go ahead and try to get her off mute electronically?
Yeah, I did get it off mute, but she needs to unmute it on her side.
Okay, let's go to Ms. Barnes. Ms. Barnes, same, well, we see your last name. Please state your name, state who your question is directed to, and before you, please take yourself off mute. Ms. Barnes, go for it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine now, go ahead.
Okay, great. My question is directed toward everyone, all of the candidates. Okay, so my question is, what will you do to help protect our country from future attempts to interfere with our elections?
Okay, let's go in order again. Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts on that question? 2 minutes.
Okay, am I on?
I can hear you, yes, go ahead.
Okay. What we have to do is we have to be more involved in our electoral process. I have participated in as a ballot reviewer and observer for a number of different districts in the last election cycle. I have written reports and submitted them and given verbal testimony, as well as participated in questioning the ballots, as well as the cleaning up the voter rolls and everything. So you got to be involved. You know, we have to get our constituents, we have to get everybody to be involved in the electoral process. We have to do away with ballot harvesting, this foolhardy notion of no voter right, no IDs required for voting, as well as allowing immigrants to vote in a process that was up till now reserved for citizens of the United States. I really do believe in my heart of hearts that the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would adversely affect the Black community more so than any other community. And I yield.
Thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts on that question?
Yes, well, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, the first thing that I want to say is the only real big lie that we can see with our election process is the notion that any election is 100% accurate. It's impossible. The statistics prove that to be the case. So when it comes into delving into what would give individuals more access to voting and what also sticks to our state constitution and our United States Constitution would be giving individuals perhaps a rideshare program to get to the ballot box. We don't want to prey on the elderly or on the youth to where we're also at the same token stating that essentially with that John Lewis Act, that African Americans are incapable of obtaining identification. I don't believe that that is the case. And I think we have moved past those same particular issues, and to make sure that the elections are just and fair moving forward, we know that we need to help individuals make sure that they can obtain a free identification, make sure that they can get to the polls, and help provide them access to do so. And also additional education in the process. I yield.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts, please. Dr. Baker, you're up next.
Yes, thank you for the question. First of all, I think that it's vital that from a federal level, we encourage the legislation that's passed, even on a local and state level, to make certain things become infectious. What do I mean? I mean, in the city of South Fulton, Georgia, I was proud to support and pass an Election Day holiday. Because of this Election Day holiday, we allow our people to have the day off so that we can support advocacy for voting. I think that we have to make sure that we do that as municipalities and do everything that we can do to make sure that all citizens are engaged in this process if we do want fair elections. And also, I mean, it's not vital for us to recreate the will. I think the John Lewis Voting Act needs to be passed. And I would like to, I mean, I just think that it's shameful almost for any African in America to push back on any of the hurdles that our people may face when it comes to voting. Whenever we knew that people had to count peanuts, and now there's discrepancies with IDs, and laws like this, if passed, could actually address those issues. For us to feel like, well, yeah, this is not a barrier or it's not crippling, I just say shame on you, because we know that there are constant hurdles for subsections of people to have equal rights and equal shares. And we do know that there was a fight to vote. So these other things are still in place. And if you support any Republican barriers that are
30 seconds remaining,
that are in place to keep us from voting, shame on you as an African in America. And at some point, hosts and moderators, I would like to be able to answer some of the people in the chat regarding the questions that they contend. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Driscoll, your 2 minutes.
It's amazing that in 2022, we are having a discussion about voting rights for people who have fought so hard to be sure that we're able to all participate in a pretty candid conversation. So I just wanted to point that out first of all. Listen, we need to pass the voting rights bill. We need to prosecute those. Very frankly, we need to prosecute those who attack our democracy, such as those officials in the Trump administration and those who attacked our Capitol on that day in January the 6th. Also, being more engaged in District 13, I definitely know that will help turn out the vote. So many people that I've spoken to over the phone for these last weeks have been telling me over and over again, they didn't even know that the election was going on, or what date the election is going to be, or how they're able to get access to absentee ballots. And I think that's where the education comes in. And I also think that's where we need to be sure that we are adamant in being able to let our constituents know specifically where they can vote, when they can vote. And not only that, let's get rid of this red tape that continues to be the barrier of so many people who sacrificed so much of their lives to be able to check off someone that they support in a ballot box. And it will be an honor to our past John Lewis to be able to be sure that we pass this voting rights bill, because it's not only for us. Again,
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you, sir. It's not only about us, it's also about our children who need to know that there are people who fought to be able to count the vote.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Fort, your thoughts.
Thank you. The issue of voting rights is absolutely critical. I have been a fighter against voter suppression since 2003. A lot of people think that voter suppression started in 2019, 2021. Republicans at the state capitol were doing voter suppression back in 2003. In particular, they were proposing, the first thing they proposed were voter IDs, and that was designed to do one thing and one thing only: suppress the vote of people of color, senior citizens, and other Democratic voters. And I've got to say, whoever said, made that comment about immigrants voting and ballot harvesting, I want you to provide us with documentation on that. I think that is that's false, and anybody who says it ought to be prepared to provide documentation. So as far as voting rights is concerned, I support the John Lewis Voting Act, in particular, reinstating pre-clearance. Pre-clearance would have prevented a lot of these changes to the laws that Republicans have put in place. It would have stopped it before they were implemented. So, you know, for example, these There are people who's,
30 seconds remaining.
thank you, sir. You can't even give people water in line. That's crazy. And we'll see about that this election. But I am just really, to be honest with you, very bothered by some of the comments made as if voter suppression is not happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Tania, please take yourself off mute. State your first and last name and ask your question and let us know who it's directed to. Tony.
Hello, this is Antonio Jones. This is directed to all the candidates. Want to get your opinion about mask mandate. Is it a good idea or not? And also, is COVID true or real?
Okay, we'll go in order again. And on the next question, we're going to go in reverse order. So keep that in mind. Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts.
I'm here. Am I on?
Yes, we can hear
All
you.
right. I am vehemently against COVID mandates and lockdowns. What you have to understand is the science, of course. COVID with a 99.7% survival rate and questions among numerous scientific studies regarding transmissibility and severity. So before we start jumping through hoops and throwing the public in a panic, let us get more information. Let's get more data on what COVID really is and how to treat it. When you have a government that blocks therapeutics and introduces and mandates vaccines that require follow-up boosters in the order of 4 at this point, I don't think that demonstrates any effectiveness at all. And finally, you have to consider that there are more deaths from fentanyl overdoses than COVID, but the border still remains wide open, which would bring in both problems. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your 2 minutes.
Yes, well, I have actually been involved with quite a few of the America Frontline doctors. And at this point, we understand that this is about science and not about philosophy and ideology. My daughter has been in school since August 2020, in person with no mask. For one, she is an epileptic. And the mask, what a lot of people didn't understand with COVID is the individuals that were in the disabled population were the ones that actually suffered the most from the mandates and the policies that were implemented. She is blind in one eye. You cannot teach Braille virtually. It's impossible. So the individuals that suffered were the disabled, were the disenfranchised, were the immunocompromised. The policies that they put in place shut down kidneys. Remdesivir, according to various doctors, is actually more harmful than the actual treatments. This is where we became into a place where the treatments and the policy was worse than the disease. And that is, no, I do not believe COVID is a hoax, but you must look at the numbers and you must look at the actual facts behind what actually happened. And the policies, we need limited government. We needed the states' rights. That's the 10th Amendment. The states have the ability to implement the policy, and that's what should have happened. Thank you. I yield.
Hey, thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts.
Yes, thanks for the question. Simply put, yes, I do believe that COVID is real. When it comes to that and the mask mandates, I will say that may be subjective to those SMEs or subject matter experts as they clear information is shared and provided to the federal government, state and local as well. And I think that is a subjective stance when it comes to that. And I believe that to even have to answer the question whether or not COVID is real is just an acknowledgement to where we are when it comes to our faith in our government. And, you know, I think that it's just, to be radically honest, a thing with our government where we have seen them take advantage of every pandemic or crisis and not allowing it to go to waste, while watching, you know, over the past 2 years, several businesses and institutions get rich just off of the pandemic, or plandemic as many people call it. And I think that that faith in our government needs to be restored through transparency when it comes to this picture still being painted of COVID. I yield.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts.
Thank you for that question. COVID is not a hoax. We do know that. And also for me, I follow the experts. I also follow the science. And I also know that vaccines and masks work. It's very sad and unfortunate that this topic has become so political and polarized to where we're not able to have a transparent conversation about the health and the benefits that really are the trigger points to our lives. So I thank you for that question, but at the same time, we all have to remember, what is the true meaning of our service here? Meaning our government and those who are supposed to represent us. And to know that it's not a hoax, definitely know to be sure that our constituents should know that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Fort, your thoughts.
Yes, COVID is real. It is a pandemic. It has ravaged the 13th district more so than most other areas in the metropolitan area and in the state. Vaccines and masks are a vital tool in stopping the pandemic and getting it under control. So I am hearing this evening a lot of Trumpian analysis. What we need is science, and what we need is information. By the time this pandemic is over, there's going to be 1 million people dead. You know, if that is not acceptable. Some people making it sound as if 3% mortality rate is acceptable. It's not acceptable. And I'm just really, I'll be honest with you, I'm outraged that it has ravaged the African-American community. It is the worst of the worst health disparities. If anybody is taking advantage of this pandemic, we need to deal with that. But we cannot let that distort our vision of what is going on. This is the worst pandemic that has happened in more than 100 years. And so I just really, if we had masks
30
worn,
seconds.
If we had masks worn in a comprehensive way, we would have saved hundreds of thousands of people's lives. And two, if we had a single payer healthcare system, we would have also saved hundreds of thousands of lives. That's a call for a change in our healthcare policy. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I turn it over to my co-moderator, please keep in mind that any misinformation typed into the chat, we're just going to kick you out of the room. Only this morning is your only one. Mr. Brown, if you would go ahead, lower your hand and take yourself off mute. And I believe you'll be asking questions from the chat. Rob Brown.
Thank you so much for recognizing me. The chat room has a couple of different questions. There has been some follow-up on one of our initial questions, and some of our members want specificity in terms of those who believe in 50% or something akin to paternal rights. They want a drill down on the abortion question, meaning if you were providing 50% rights and if the father had to give consent, would that consent need to be in writing? And how would you deal with the issue of parents who have abandoned their kids and aren't available? How would the 50% right rule work in that situation? And on the opposite side, if you don't agree with it, then please state your position in terms of how do you support fathers who do want to be in the lives of their kids. So that would be the first question. The second question was about employment discrimination and about hate crimes, specifically as it pertained to sexuality, gender identity, and things of that nature. The participant wanted to know how you felt about the Equality Act, and specifically, what would you do to impact hate crimes against participants in our communities? And then the last question, and I'll reiterate this, but the last question.
Rod, sorry, let's stop at 2. That's too many. Let's stop at 2.
That's too many? Okay.
Divided up 1 minute apiece. So again,
we're
going in reverse order.
Let me just reiterate that. The first one was a follow-up question, and it was about abortion, and specifically, would you require written consent if you are for 50% paternal rights? If you are not for the 50% paternal rights, then how would you protect paternal rights or fathers who want to be interested? The second question was about protection under the Equality Act, specifically as it pertains to sexuality, gender identity, and hate crimes against people like that.
Okay, thank you. Let's go in reverse order. Mr. Fort, you're first. Please manage your time wisely.
How much time do we have?
2 minutes.
Okay. On the first one, as far as father's rights is concerned, you know, this is a complex issue, but there are custodial rights, there are parental rights. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as abortion is concerned, it is the right of the woman. Roe v. Wade. It is the right of the woman to decide what happens with her body, not the man, not anyone else, but the woman. And so I don't know how clear I can be. You know, the custodial parent is 50-50, but as you know, the custodial parent really is 51-49%. So it is a woman's right to choose too. As far as hate crimes against the LGBTQ community, I passed the state's first hate crimes law, worked with Georgia Equality, ADL, and NAACP to pass that. There is a federal anti-discrimination law. There is a federal hate crimes law. And as far as anti-discrimination, we need to make sure that a person's right to a job federally is protected, regardless of their sexual orientation. So I have a history, I have a long history of being involved in fighting hate crimes, in fighting discrimination against the LGBTQ community.
Seconds.
I will continue that fight because I've done it before and will continue to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts.
Thank you for that question. We already have laws that are there to be able to protect parents. And as I said before, as a woman, I do believe that it is our right to be able to choose the power of my body. And for the second question, no one's humanity is reduced to the various identities and also the intersections of how they result, how they identify. And so I believe, to be sure, that the rights are there for all members of our community, that they're protected, that they're able to know that they're not going to be discriminated against as they go apply for that job, or as they go stand in that line to be sure that they get the benefits that they know that they deserve. I want to be sure that I'm able to be an advocate, a strong advocate for all members of our residents in District 13 who have not been covered and somehow have found themselves to be lost in the policies that somehow may leave them behind. Again, I want to be a strong advocate for those people, and not only that, to be sure that the intersectionality of how you are able to identify should not come and compromise your rights as a human first.
Okay, thank you for that response. Dr. Baker, your thoughts on those questions? Dr. Baker?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. Again, I believe that.
But what if you just
background noise? There's background noise.
Stand by. We'll start your time over again as soon as we get those people on mute. Go ahead, Dr. Baker. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Again, as I said last time the question was posed, that I don't believe it's my place to speak on that. But I will say that after a child arrives, undoubtedly 100% I do support a father's rights. I think somebody has to say it, and I have no problem being the one to do it. This conversation about women's right to choose, and us even having it as a topic of conversation, is a conversation that festers out of a community that we don't necessarily have that common unity with. I personally tend to believe that this is a situation where old white men are concerned about their mortality. If you look at the numbers and the statistics, you have whites in America numbers being declining, and them being no longer majority population and a minority population in another 24 years. And I think that we take this on, but many of them don't care about Black women's rights when it comes to them in giving birth. And we can tell that by their infant mortality rates. But again, I don't want to touch too far on that. Again, when it comes to supporting, everybody's rights to be treated as human beings in America, I am for that, regardless of sexuality, sexual identity, or any of that. But I am also concerned about passing. I'm also concerned about passing the Anti-Lynching Act that we need to talk about as well. Passing these symbolic measures in the Senate is not enough, and the Anti-Lynching Act needs to be passed for Black people and hate crimes that have been occurring since our time in America. I yield. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your response, please.
Yes, when it comes to women's rights, as a woman, I believe I'm very well qualified to speak on the topic. And one of the things that I am is pro-life, because I believe life begins at conception. However, as it being a woman's body, I also believe that she should have that same right to choose, but not choose to use abortion as a contraceptive. That's where the rubber meets the road in regards to that particular issue. When it goes to the level of discrimination, discrimination is illegal across the board already. So is murder. So is lynching. So I don't believe we need additional government to deal with these particular issues, because it's already there. It's already in place. So when it actually comes down to the issues that need to be addressed, it's hate, or it is murder. You don't murder people. We don't need an extra law to protect people from murder. Like, it's already illegal. Enforce the laws that are already on the books, and we will be all right. We will continue to strive and thrive. That's all that is necessary. I'm for limited government.
30 seconds remaining.
I'm for limited government. And at the end of the day, I actually had a miscarriage. So I am very well familiar with the fact that once you miscarry at 8 weeks even, the child has fingers and eyes. So no, I'm not for you using it as a contraceptive policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts on those questions, please.
Oh, there are many. women's rights and women's rights over their respective children shouldn't undermine the role of the father, both as a participant in the child rearing as well as the caregiving. We have historically blocked fathers from their participation in that. A father is more than just a wallet. Okay, and it just seems funny that the progressives refer to a fetus as just a lump of cells until they want to harvest the parts for other medical things, but I digress. I think fathers' rights should be addressed. I think they are significant, and I think that the fathers have been marginalized in the lives of their children for many years, up until recently. Now, as far as the LGBT community and discrimination, I say enforce the laws on the books, but stop the overreach. You know, if somebody doesn't want to bake you a cake, go to another bakery. There's no reason to sue them because they don't share the same beliefs that you do. There are federal discrimination laws in place. There are hate crime laws in place, which I don't understand, because if somebody murders somebody, if it's considered a hate crime, what do? Kick them before you flip the switch? It's illogical. No group is more noble than the other. No group should be held more noble than the other. We're all Americans. We should be treated as Americans. Apply the laws equally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Ellen, if you would take yourself off mute, state your first and last name, pose your question, and make sure you let us know who it's directed to. Ellen, last time we couldn't get you off mute. Going once, going twice. Okay, Caitlin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Is that Ellen? Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Yes, Ellen Smith.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yes. I'd like to know, what is your position on the legalization of marijuana?
Okay, thank you for that question. Mr. Fort, we'll start with you this time. 2 minutes. Mr. Fort. Mr.
Yes,
Fort?
sir. Yes, I'm here. I appreciate that question. Over the years, I fought for decriminalization of marijuana. In 2017, 2016, 2017, I helped lead the fight for the decriminalization of marijuana in Atlanta, because I saw that the law was used to criminalize Black people, especially young Black men. And so that's why I fought to convince the City Council in Atlanta to pass decriminalization of marijuana. I worked along with several other community leaders, as well as several elected officials, to get that passed. We saw the disparate impact of marijuana arrests in the Black community in Fulton County. I believe the disparate impact was 3 or 4 to 1.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Whites and Blacks tend to use marijuana almost the same. Black arrest and incarceration is disparate, Black to white. So that's why I fought for decrim, and I think I was glad to hear that the House of Representatives passed the decrim bill earlier this week or late last week.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts.
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question, specifically in 2022, as we leap toward the future for more benefits and more health aspirations for people in our district. Specifically, yes, I do support decriminalizing marijuana, specifically because there is a disproportion. You look at the facts and when you look at the statistics, when it comes to men of color, and also when it comes to specific neighborhoods, and how these people are not able to have the access or the education. Again, let's go back to the education to where people are able to really understand what cannabinoids are, what cannabis really is, and all of the different species that come from that specific plant that are actually having remarkable medical breakthroughs, not only just for people who are adults, but let's also talk about children who are suffering from specific ailments that research has shown that cannabinoids and cannabis has actually helped to support. And also, when you look at decriminalizing marijuana, there are so many different avenues that can open up for economic development. Again, I told you the perspective that I look for the residents, as I was raised in District 13, I want to be sure that the social and economic development is
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you, sir, is there for our constituents. And so when you are able to have more jobs come to our district, more access to our district when it comes to this specific industry, it's a booming place. So I want to be sure that we're there to get the first grabs, to be sure that we're supporting our district, but also supporting our mental health and also our physical abilities. I yield.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts, please.
Yes, thank you for yielding. I'm proud to say that I could go on record and be one of the few people, well, the only person in this group to say that I didn't fight for it, I didn't push for it, I didn't support it, I didn't write a letter, I actually passed it. And I did it when it was really, really taboo, all the way 4 years ago, when other elected officials told me that I wouldn't be re-elected if I pushed for measures such as decriminalizing marijuana. I'm also proud to say that my legislation in the city of South Fulton was the third legislation in the entire state of Georgia. And we've seen the cascading effects of everyone else following suit, from Savannah to Forest Park and several other local municipalities. I think that it's vital for some of the reasons you may have heard, but jobs and school, financial aid, housing. A lot of people can't get housing with cannabis on their record. And it's more vital, I think. The approach I took was more of a criminal justice reform position. Being in law enforcement for a large part of my career, I think that it was vital for our elders to know in our community that this wasn't about smoking reefers, as my grandma used to call it, but it was more vital to understand and digest that 90% of the individuals on Rice Street look just like me, look just like your brothers and sisters and your uncles and fathers. And it's more because they didn't have the $1,000 or whatever the fine was to get out, which we should take steps towards decriminalizing poverty if that's the case. Outside of that, I would like to share that I have grown over the past 4 years past decriminalizing marijuana to legalizing marijuana, cannabis on municipal level, leaving my very last piece of legislation that will be voted on next month on May 25th. I authored legislation to have City Council in South Fulton to pardon less than an ounce of marijuana summings as a nod or a nudge towards the state and federal government to say that it's time so we can start bringing in that economic development and those resources. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. And Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. That's a lovely question. As one of the only panelists or candidates here, I am a mother of an epileptic child. So I actually have experience with dealing with the pharmaceutical companies that wanted $10,000 for CBD oil for my individual daughter to be placed on. But being that it has actually been decriminalized, the cannabinoid oil has been decriminalized, I actually understand the benefits of it because they tried to place on her multiple anticonvulsants, and those big pharma drugs actually disabled her further. She became almost completely comatose. It was not acceptable. She wasn't surviving and thriving the way that she was and is currently on CBD oil. So I am absolutely in agreement that it should be decriminalized, and it has been on multiple levels, and it should also be completely legalized as well, because I believe that the individual, that it's a plant, and individuals thrive with actually using it for multiple healing purposes. I'm aware, and at this point, being that the CBD oil actually has helped save my daughter's life,
30 seconds.
you must look at an amendment possibly being passed on a federal level to actually look at what we're going to do about this once I'm actually a member of Congress. Thank you. I
Thank you
yield.
for those comments. Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts on those questions?
Yes, sir. To be quite honest, I'm of two minds about the whole legalization process. I understand the medicinal properties of low THC cannabis oil, the Charlotte's Web derivative, for example. But as representative of the 13th district, I would more than likely defer to what my constituents want and how they feel about it. Okay, if we're going to go through a legalization process, I say legalize it and tax it. That would be a good revenue base, and that would address funding for rehabilitation, if you will. But you know, the decriminalization, I would follow to a degree. If we're going to decriminalize it, make it retroactive. Stop locking people up for years for possession of a small quantity. If that's all there is, if that's all they were dealing with, that's all they were charged with. And I yield.
Okay, thank you for that. Mike Edwards, if you would take yourself off mute, ask your question, and let us know who it's directed to. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, Mike Edwards, once, twice. Okay, Caitlin, if you would take yourself off mute, go ahead and ask your question and let us know who it's directed to, and don't forget to mention your last name. Caitlin. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hello, it's Mike Edwards.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll go with you then. Go ahead.
Okay, I've got a comment relative to the constitutional carry bill that was just passed by the governor. And I think this is directed to Dominica Hawkins. She identified herself as a constitutional conservative, if I'm correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I am. I would first like to say, I am a retired Marine Corps veteran. United States Marine Corps trains the very best marksmen in the entire world. Now, this constitutional carry bill that was just passed, you've removed the number one regulation and identification thing for public gun carry and you're using it under the pretense of the Second Amendment. This is ludicrous. I said what I said to say this. If you can't shoot straight, you have no business carrying a weapon. And by allowing individuals to carry weapons publicly with no regulation in place, you're asking for trouble. And if you think by, hiding behind the Second Amendment to justify this constitutional carry, that's ridiculous.
Thank you for your question.
More guns.
Thank you for your question. Ms. Hawkins, can you go ahead and respond, please?
Thank you very much for your question. My husband is a disabled combat Navy veteran as well. So I appreciate and thank you very much for your service. When it comes down to the constitutional carry, I believe that one, a tyrant has no pretext for their tyranny. That means an inanimate object has never jumped off of the porch and shot someone. These are inanimate objects. Whilst I agree with your premise wholeheartedly that individuals would be better served to implement more education programs, that doesn't take away the fact that an individual that is intent on doing harm to someone, whether it be a gun, a knife, a motor vehicle, all of those still remain inanimate objects, sir. I yield.
I
Okay,
agree.
thank you.
I agree.
This is not a debate, Mr. Edwards, sorry. If you
Okay.
have another question, please raise your hand.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Would any other candidate like to respond to that question? If so, speak up. We're not gonna go in order for that because it was directed at Ms. Hawkins.
I'll respond.
Go ahead, Mr. Ford.
One of the things that concerns me about that issue is when the governor was talking about why it was needed, he said it was needed because of crime. He said it was needed because of quote unquote civil unrest. Now, do we all know what he meant when he said civil unrest? That is Black
right.
Lives Matter protests, George Floyd protests, and other civil rights protests. So there's a racial element to why the Republican Party is so hot to trot over constitutional, or what I call criminal carry, because not only will criminals be more likely to have guns, carry guns, do you know that a police officer cannot ask someone whether they're carrying a gun? So it puts our officers at risk. For all of those folk out there that say we support the blue, you're not supporting them if you support criminal carry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Any other candidates want to respond to that?
I do.
Go ahead.
First of all, I have friends of mine who are members of law enforcement who fully support constitutional carry. I find it surprising that people would assume that banning guns and banning constitutional carry will somehow stop the violence that occurs on the streets, that is part of our social fabric, that's part of the culture. Just amazing. What you got to remember is this: the criminal element will always be armed. Outlawing guns and restricting supply will only inhibit law-abiding citizens the right to protect oneself and one's property. But what we're not looking at is this will also encourage underground manufacture and sale of guns, creating yet another black market. You have to look at it another way. Say, outlawing opiates was effective, wasn't it? We're dealing with that today. Second Amendment is important for an individual to be able to protect one's property, one's family, and oneself. To say that, oh, well, we're firing up the criminal element is to say, okay, well, all law-abiding citizens are now victims. We're reduced to victims. We're not allowed to defend ourselves because in order to be armed, we also, it relegates us to the criminal element. I think this conversation is ludicrous.
Okay, thank you for those thoughts. Any other candidate? Would you like to respond at this point to that question?
I would just like to make a clarification real quick, if I may.
Please,
regarding what was said earlier about law enforcement officers not being able to inquire whether or not someone has a weapon. That is definitely not true, and I believe many of us know that. But I just want to go on the record and say that when it goes farther than that, it's more with law enforcement's ability to use their weapons against those individuals who may be armed. And that includes AOJ, what they call ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, meaning the subject has to have the ability, meaning the weapon, opportunity, meaning the distance or being close in proximity, and jeopardy, meaning the intention or raising the weapon towards said officer in order to do that. But just for clarification, officers can and will all time for their safety ask whether or not you have a weapon if they're speaking to you and they believe that there's a reason to ask that. I yield. Thanks.
Let me
Thank
respond
you.
to that. Let me
Go ahead.
respond to that. We're going to check on that. I don't believe that's true. When we were passing some other gun legislation in the state Senate, it was explicit that officers, if you are carrying concealed, you do not have to tell an officer that you are carrying. We'll check on that, but thank you.
I'd like to weigh back in as well, if I may.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All
30
right.
seconds.
When it comes down to constitutional carry, what we have is the deadly force triangle that any military service or service veteran would understand. If an individual has the opportunity, capability, and the intent, okay, criminals are going to be criminals regardless of anything. So putting more laws on the books does not change individuals from breaking the laws that are currently there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Sherry's iPhone. Sherry's iPhone, please take yourself off mute. Tell us your last name, state your question and who it's directed to, please. Go ahead. Sherry's iPhone going once, going twice. Mr. Coleman, we're going to go to you next. Please state your question and who it's directed to.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. This question is directed to everyone, but I must say to Mr. Gonzalez, you make a lot of good points, sir, and I don't know if you addressed this. I did come on late, but considering the virtual nature of this debate, it sure, or this forum, it sure would be good to be able to see you, sir, and see your facial expressions. And again, you say some pretty good stuff, and I see some friends on the battlefield, Senator Ford and Dr. Baker, good evening. As co-chair of the historic Fulton County Reparations Task Force, we've only been in existence for about 6 months. We meet once a month. The chair is Dr. Sims Alvarado. We see in California, and we celebrate in California, that they have the first ever state reparations for slavery task force. We also see in California that LA County has given back 300 plus acres of land to the rightful owners.
Mr. Coleman, in the interest of time, can you wrap this into a question?
Known as the Bruce's Beach. Understanding HR 40 exists on a congressional level, the question to the candidates is, on a federal level, what is your position on reparations for slavery? But also, since it exists in the largest county in Georgia, being Fulton, we must press on a municipality level, on a county level, and on a state level. So how would you assist with the already in progress, the historic Fulton County Reparations Slavery Task Force? Your federal position, and how can you assist us, or how would you assist us here in Fulton County, Georgia?
Thank you for that question. Mr. Fort, we're going to start with you to respond to Mr. Coleman's questions.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's important issue, Brother Coleman. I appreciate you bringing it to the fore. Long before I was in elected office as an activist and a historian, I worked doing research on Forsyth County in the property that was stolen from Black people in 1912. So I have some experience. You know, we need to devote the resources. I'd love for you to send me some information, Brother Coleman. I believe the federal task force or the federal committee or initiative, we need it. It's critical that there a decision be made on how we move from research and study to implementation, as was done in Los Angeles. So I believe in reparations. I believe that reparations is something that needs to go from theory and research to implementation. That's the great next step. That's the next great step in talking about reparations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Dr. Driscoll, and let's keep our comments concise if you don't mind, please. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you for this question. I definitely would like to hear more research and more of the plans that your coalition has already started there in South Fulton County. I do believe that in order for us to be able to implement reparations, which I do support, I want to be sure that it is feasible, and also want to be sure that there is a plan to be able to be sure that we are educated on the process to know exactly where items are coming from and how long it will take to get to the next step. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being concise. Dr. Baker, your thoughts, please.
Yes, and I will be concise since I heard that at the end of the statement. I think I'll do better not give you a story and just tell you what I've done. Prior to the formation of the coalition that Mr. Coleman, my good brother and friend, comrade on the battlefield has spoke about, I actually passed the first local reparations legislation in the state of Georgia in the city of South Fulton about approaching 3 years ago now. This is the theory and research portion as we move towards the implementation that my two Democratic candidates are speaking of, and I have no problem sharing this information with you guys. I've had the privilege to be the third person in the entire in the United States to pass a local reparations legislation behind Evanston, Illinois, and Asheville, North Carolina, then the city of South Fulton through mine. I have brought Sister Robin Ruth Simmons to the city of South Fulton. We've met with the city manager, Miss Tammy Sadler Jones, in reference to the theory and research, as well as tapped in Cobra, who've been doing this and on the front line for reparations for over 50 years. And now we're moving towards implementation. To be more concise, on the federal level, I contend that a start needs to be internal as well as external reparations for African descendants of slavery. I believe that the internal reparations should include free mental health for African Americans, and I believe the external implementations of reparations should start with the 400 years of unearned income being disseminated, or reparations through no federal income tax for African descendants of chattel slavery, in order to build and pass down generational wealth.
Thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. I actually am a Native American descent as well as African American. So I'm for reparations if the policy can be implemented correctly. And what I would do would look at our fiscal budget and see the correct way to implement the policy so that it would benefit all individuals and all constituents involved. I yield.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts, please.
Oh, yes. I find it amazing that Democrats spend more money on symbolism, on feasibility studies, than any actual implementation of any reparations process. Wow. Racially, I'm Native American. I'm still waiting for my checks to come in. But if I was going to follow any process of reparations, I believe in reparations through education and economics initiatives rather than any broad process. I yield.
Okay, thank you for that. And right now, we're going to go ahead and do a time check. We're scheduled to stop and start the final comments by each candidate at 8:50. And so we're getting close. So I want to go ahead and ask each candidate in the same order we've been asking questions. Does anyone have a hard stop at 9 o'clock? Mr. Ford, what about you?
No, I can go as long as y'all are gonna go.
Okay. Dr. Driscoll, hard stop at 9 or yes or no?
I can continue if needed. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Baker, any
I'm here
hard
for the people.
stops? Okay, thank you. Ms. Hawkins, any hard stop?
Not at this time. I can continue.
Mr. Gonzalez, same question.
I can continue.
Okay, thank you for that. We will also ask that you keep your following comments to 1 minute, and then we'll try at 9 o'clock to go ahead and start the closing remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. So Caitlin, this is my 3rd time calling on you. I'm gonna ask you to take yourself off mute again. State your first and last name, and then state your question and let us know who it's directed to. Caitlin.
This is Caitlin Smith. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is Caitlin Smith. My question is, what are 2 of your most proud accomplishments in the last year?
Okay, thank you for that question. Mr. Ford, 1 minute for your comments to that question.
Wow, that's a real interesting question. How long do I have, sir? I'm sorry.
1 minute.
2 greatest accomplishments. Well, one accomplishment coming to fruition is my daughter's graduation and her going on to preparing to go to medical school. It was, so that's probably the most important one. And the second one is surviving the pandemic emotionally as well as physically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Driscoll, 1 minute to respond to that question.
Thank you for that question. To be frank and to be honest, I will definitely let you know, to be able to have an 11-year-old son in a private school and be able to have straight A's on his report card within his first semester during the pandemic, when school has been fluctuated from virtual to brick and mortar, virtual to brick and mortar. I'm definitely very proud of my son and the integrity that he has. And that's definitely an accomplishment for me as a mother, specifically because it gives another adamant to my fight for those in the district. And the second thing I will say, honestly, is continuing to qualify to run for this race, where I was able to see a lot of my past family members, my community residents being raised in District 13, being able to visit my pre-K teacher and telling her that I'm running for District 13. So it's been very great for me able to come home to a sense for people who were there to vouch for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, your 1 minute response, please. Dr. Baker.
Yes, sir. I would have to say over the past 2 years, my biggest accomplishment would be in May of last year, I received my doctoral degree from Clark Atlanta University. That was something that I started back in 2005. And since then, I taught at the university from 2007 and, started the city of South Fulton and, had children and everything else. But last year is when I finished, better late than never. I think outside of that, I would say in an act of service, more importantly, I would say every single month, I started what is called a Common Unity series this last year, where we gave away 50,000 pounds of food on Old National Corridor every single month, bringing Dr. Umar Johnson, Brother Reza Islam, Robin Root Simmons, Chris Cole, everybody there to enhance and keep the spirits up while serving the community. Are you?
Thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts. 1 minute.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Fine.
All right. Within the last year or two, I started a social network with my husband that gave a voice to the voiceless. We actually had been censored on multiple social networks because we were trying to get out the information about what was going on in the world today. And in addition to that, I also birthed a child, and I also got my half-blind epileptic daughter to get straight A's in first grade. straight A's. They said before that she wasn't even going to be able to read. So we're reading. I'm learning Braille. She's learning Braille. I'm able to teach it now as well. So that's one of my biggest accomplishments. And for her to come home and show me her grades, she's very proud, and I'm very proud of her and our additional accomplishments. Thank you, sir. I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, your 1 minute.
I have to say my biggest accomplishment is leading by example, that I finished a degree in mechanical engineering, was hired straight out of Kennesaw State University by SpaceX. I worked on the number of different projects, including the Crew Dragon capsule that recently went up to the International Space Station. I like to use my successes as an example to my community that in spite of anyone's background or race or ethnic group, they can achieve anything they want to. I yield.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so that we stay on time and we can start closing remarks right at 9 o'clock, we're going to take one more question with 1 minute response answers from our co-moderator, Rod Brown. So Rod, if you'll ask that one question, and we'll get 1 minute responses from the candidates. Rod?
Thank you so much for the recognition. The last question that we'll pose then will be, the chat room was talking about various things in terms of whether COVID was a hoax or not, and information about illegal immigration and things of that nature. So the question that I have crafted is, what is your position about the proliferation of misinformation? Would you be for prosecuting people who are found guilty of that? And if so, how would you balance that versus the amendment right to speak, the First Amendment right?
Great question. Mr. Ford, your thoughts, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think disinformation, to be honest with you, in this situation, is evil. I don't know if it's illegal, but I know it's evil. Anti-vax, the dissemination of anti-vax conspiracy theories leads to people dying. The best disinfectant when it comes to speech is to expose the liars and disinformation. So I would not prosecute necessarily, but I would condemn. You know, there are people who are spreading disinformation.
15 seconds remaining.
It's causing people to die. You know, I've seen so many of those pictures that everybody on this call has seen about people who said, I thought it was a hoax. They told me it was a hoax, and now I'm dying because of it. This is not, I mean, COVID is so real.
I'm limited to say that.
It's a conspiracy. It's not a
Thank you,
conspiracy.
Mr. Ford. Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Ford. Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts, please. 1 minute.
Yes, thank you for this question. It's very, very important, especially during a time where we are continuing to have different sides of things being told and things that we are being broken apart instead of being coming together with unity. I will definitely say you have the right to speak, right? You have that right to speak, but you do not have the right to the platforms. And so there, I would be able to be sure that there is a great distinction between that. And if you are continuing to speak against something on a specific platform, then you should be able to be sure that you're able to handle the consequences that come next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Baker, your thoughts.
Yes, thank you. I think that I don't think someone should be prosecuted for sharing information, because a lot of the information these days that comes from the internet, and a lot of it is not researched well. But I do tell you this, being a son of a pastor, 2 Timothy 2nd chapter 15 verse says, the study that show thyself approved, workman needed not to be ashamed, rightly divided in the word of truth. So I think that we have to heed that and actually be responsible for the content that we digest inwardly. Also, I believe that I believe it was page 82 of The Miseducation of the Negro, written by Carter G. Woodson, who said there's two types of knowledges. One that's given to you, the other you acquire on your own. And of the two, the latter is the greater. I think we need to be good stewards of our families and of our communities and research on our own. and then make decisions based off of our own edification as best we can. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you for those comments. Ms. Hawkins, your thoughts. 1 minute, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When it comes down to misinformation, first of all, that term needs to be defined specifically. Is it information that they don't want you to hear, or is it information that someone else has deemed propaganda? Because at the beginning of the time, people were allowed second opinions. People were allowed second opinions from different individual doctors. As a granddaughter of my grandmother that I actually buried just a few years ago, during the start of COVID, she was actually on the schedule to have cancer surgery. They canceled her surgery due to the fact that it was an elective procedure. I don't believe that that was the case, nor do I believe any individual can actually determine what the information itself is. So no, I don't believe individuals should be prosecuted for actually researching and doing their own edification in that's up to individuals.
Time limited.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, your 1 minute.
Yes, I can't believe we're actually talking about prosecuting people for practicing their First Amendment rights. You know, if one closes one's mind to dissenting opinion, one will never learn anything. And then I follow that with, who are the stewards of information? Who determines what is fake news or what is false information? I mean, that in itself is exercising one's First Amendment rights. So even talking about prosecuting people for exercising their First Amendment rights, to me, is questionable at best. I yield.
Okay, thank you for that. One thing I want to ask the candidates before they start their closing remarks, and again, we're starting in the same order, beginning with Mr. Fort. You'll have 2 minutes each. Please have a look at the chat. If there are any questions that you want to respond to in that chat, please go ahead while the other candidates are speaking. Also, if you haven't done so already, please type your information, your website, your contact information, etc., into the chat box so that the constituents have it. With that, why don't we start our 2 minute closing remarks? Mr. Fort, your 2 minutes start as soon as I see you.
All right, here I am.
Go ahead.
It is time for a change in District 13. It is no longer acceptable that people be missing in action. I have just today challenged the incumbent to 6 debates, 1 in each county of the district, asking him to show up and debate. He hasn't been seen in quite some time. Mayor Khalid Kamal already said that. We need someone who's going to show up. There are too many issues that are going on in this district. We talked about many of them today. One of them that I wanted to talk about is the fact that you have a Job Corps location that has been abandoned, although I hear they're starting up construction. But for 4 years, you've had a federal program, Job Corps, that some of the citizens were concerned about when it came, but now it's a swampy location. And I just want to know, why are we in a situation where the sitting incumbent has allowed that property at the corner of Roosevelt Highway and Washington Road to fester like that? He took credit for bringing it here, but he's missing in action when it comes to accountability. That's why the incumbent needs to go. We need a new congressman.
30 seconds remaining.
And I believe I'm that congressman, that person. The fact of the matter is, I've done so much in my career as an activist, as a state senator, as a teacher. And when I'm in Congress, we're going to implement a
community-based approach to how the district
Time
is
limit
treated.
exceeded.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dr. Driscoll, your thoughts, please.
We have come to a very critical time for our district. And I want to be sure that we can ask the question, which we should simply be able to do, what's wrong with continuing to accept this as our normal District 13 for 26 more years? Also, being able to be sure that we know that there is a change coming, but at the same time, are you part of that change? Simply checking off a box to re-elect is easy, but when I earn your vote, that means I'm going to be able to be sure that I'm there to make sure that you have what you need, you're visible, meaning me too, and you're able to hear exactly what is going on in Washington for you here in District 13. That's what I'm about. And not only that, I'm not a politician. I am a neighbor. I am your friend, sister, somewhere where you can see who's going through exactly what you're going through. And I know how to get things done to be sure that we're bringing all people to the table to make the best decisions for our citizens and our residents in District 13. And as the only female on the ballot, and to know that in District 13, that over 34% of women 34 to 44 years old are living in poverty. That's what the statistics say at MIT.
30 seconds.
Thank you. I find that unacceptable. So as the only female Democratic nominee here for this election, we can't sit back. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to seeing you in the community. I hope that you go and voteinmay.com. Spread it out to all of your neighbors and friends, because we cannot sit this election out. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication. Let's keep thriving in District 13, better than we were before.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. Dr. Baker, your closing remarks, please.
Yes, I would like to say thanks to everyone who allowed us to come together to have this conversation. I think it's really, really needed. I'm asking that you don't vote for us because you've heard our name before. Research all of us. Research what we've done in the past. Don't vote for us because we're female and we're Black. Don't vote for us because we're Black. Research our works, and I will leave you with my works. Abolish Columbus Day, decriminalize cannabis, made $15 a minimum wage, but I'm fighting for a livable wage, banned the box for convicted felons, activated the Development Authority, as well as the Urban Redevelopment Authority in the city of South Fulton, bringing us $17 million outside of the $2 billion project I have coming to Old National. Resolution regarding long-term effects of 5G towers, made Juneteenth a holiday. Breonna Taylor's law, the first in the state of Georgia to actually end no-knock warrants in South Fulton. Investor harassment ordinance resolutions, and hashtag 8can'twait that ended police chokeholds. The Crown Act that allows our brothers and sisters to wear their hair without discriminatory practices in the workplace. Central Park 5 legislation that requires our police officers to film all interrogations in totality of juvenile offenders or suspects. The resolution condemning domestic terrorism, resolution regarding the George Floyd Policing Act of 2021, resolutions regarding the Georgia General Assembly removing race-based education from the classrooms, as well as Georgia's first reparations legislation. I'm asking you guys, don't vote for me unless you research me. And I'm asking you to do that for all of our candidates that's on this ballot. I'm saying right now, there's 26 years we've seen, and for the first time in 26 years, we actually have, I believe, an opportunity to beat David the Goliath. And I feel like I'm that contender that can do that with a new voice, a new vision, and it's just time. It's time to pass the baton. Vote Baker for Congress.com. Mark Baker for Congress on the ballot. I'm proud of where we are, but ashamed of how far we have to go.
Thank you. Ms. Hawkins, your 2-minute closing remarks, please. Ms. Hawkins.
Yes, sir. I'm here. I want to start off by saying that I am new to politics, but I am not new to people. And the people is where we need to make a difference. We have abilities within the district to actually realize this change. So I would have to pose the question to an absent member as well. Where are you? At this point, we need to fire individuals that don't show up to work. Hire Hawkins, fire Scott. It is very important that we actually increase the economic impact of our district. We are not a poor district. The median income is over $70,000. We can make this happen. We have the Wolf Creek Amphitheater. We have a Google headquarters that's off of, is that Camp Creek? We have in Tyler Perry Studios. We can actually set up a film and actually build this to where we can increase the economic impact of the district and keep the money within the district and stop sending it outside of it to where it's never seen again. Individuals will be able to understand that I do agree with even Dr. Mark Baker's. We need to look at the policy and not necessarily the party. I believe that the policies will withstand. And I am for freedom of speech, Second Amendment protection, education and school choice, pro-life, and also healthcare and veteran services. I thank you all for your time. This was a lovely forum, and I appreciate the invite tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Gonzalez, your 2-minute closing remarks, please.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for putting this on. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss my platform and how I would best represent the 13th Congressional District. In the 2022 election cycle, you're going to hear more of the same empty promises by candidates and the incumbent with offers to carry the baton of Atlanta politics. The symbolism over substance and divisive rhetoric continues on. So I ask that you vote for me, a person of the people. I will aggressively support accountability, oversight, and transparency in disbursement of federal resources. You have that Job Corps facility. I'd like to know where those resources went. But I also support job skills training and school choice. This is something that I experienced through growing up myself and took advantage of. I want those same opportunities that I was bestowed to be able to present those to the people of the 13th Congressional District. There are many, many more solutions to the issues affecting the 13th Congressional District on my website, CesarGonzalez4Congress.us. 20 years of Atlanta politics is enough. Time for representation that effectively targets the needs and concerns of the constituents of the 13th Congressional District. It's not rocket science.
30 seconds.
I yield.
Okay, thank you all candidates. We thank you very much for your participation. And we thank everyone else that's attended. I'd like to turn it over to the president of the South Fulton Coalition to provide us with some final remarks, Ms. Pamela Harris.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I want to say to all the candidates and participants, on behalf of the members of the South Fulton Coalition, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance this evening and future support. The South Fulton Coalition is a community-driven coalition, and it is my hope that you will all stay alert and informed by attending all city and county meetings and hold all of our elected officials accountable. Please, neighbors, remember that all of our representatives are chosen by us. Their job is to decide on the best policies and actions that will benefit us all. Elected officials have been charged with acting in the best interests of their constituents. We look forward to your active participation, and it is our hope that you'll consider joining and supporting this community-driven coalition. All opinions, voices, and interactions are welcome. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, and thank you everyone once again for attending. That concludes our town hall forum. Have a blessed
I
evening.
just wanted to get one word in before we wrap
ahead.
up.
Go ahead.
All right, so I just wanted to invite everyone out on Monday evening at 7 p.m. We will be doing another town hall. This is going to be for the race for the state senator for District 38. The candidates for this one, the incumbent is Horaceena Tate. She has not responded yet, but I will continue reaching out to her. We also have Melody Bray, Michael Carson, and Adam Petty. So I invite everybody to come join us Monday evening and visit southfultoncoalition.com if you would like to join the coalition or see some of our other events that we have going on. Thank you, everyone, and have